Thank you. Happy New Year and welcome to our spring semester Tuesday night symposium course on the thought and works of Maimonides. I'm really excited for this. I'm so glad that all of you signed up for this class. We have 66 students in this class. Yeah, so there is a great hunger for Rambam, which is amazing. And for those of you who took last semester's course, good news, this one is not in any way depressing.
Thank God.
Thank God.
It could probably be more depressing.
Yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be inspiring and uplifting and intellectually engaging. So I hope you have all had the chance to receive your binder. If you haven't, the people who haven't picked up their binders, they're on the table back there for you with your name on it. You can pick it up. I want to begin this evening by going through our syllabus, which so you will have a sense of the substance of the course and what we're going to be doing over the course of our 13 sessions. So thank you, Dory. We'll look at the syllabus, the introduction. Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, 1138 to 1204, also known as Maimonides or Rambam, is widely recognized as one of the most prolific and important Jewish scholars of all time. In this 13-session course, we will study Maimonides' key ideas and major works, including the 13 Principles of Faith, his comprehensive law code Mishneh Torah, the philosophical masterwork The Guide of the Perplexed, and his responsa on martyrdom, astrology, and resurrection. Participants are encouraged to read the background material outside of class to deepen understanding and enhance in-class discussions. The course will be divided into 5 units. So Unit 1, Introduction, is tonight. This is one session. And we're going to learn about Maimonides' background, general biography and approach to Judaism, and then we're going to study an excerpt from one of his texts, a work called Shemona Perakim, tonight, about the soul. Unit 2, which will be 2 sessions long, is about his commentary on the Mishnah. That's going to be next week, the 13th, and then January 20th. And you see the background readings there. And then the primary text we're going to look at in that unit are the 13 Principles of Faith and chapter on capital punishment. Unit 3 is Mishneh Torah. That's his comprehensive code of halakha, Jewish law. And the text that we're going to study in that's 3 sessions. January 27th, February 10th, and February 24th. We're going to be learning his book, Sefer HaMitzvot, the counting of the 613 commandments. And we're going to read sections from the Mishneh Torah on conversion, Purim, and war. And then Unit 4 is Moreh Nevuchim, translated as the Guide of the Perplexed. That's 3 sessions, March 17th, March 24th, and April 14th. And we're going to read 3 kind of aggregations of selections on angels and emanation, prophetic revelation, and the story of Job. And then it's Unit 5 is on responsa. We are going on, and that's going to be April, that's 4 sessions, April 28th, May 5th, May 12th, and May 19th. On the 28th, we're going to have a guest speaker, Dr. Gray, who has been here before, several times, is going to be here. She is, an expert in medieval halakha, Jewish law, and there's nobody better to present, on, the response of Maimonides. So she'll be here on the 28th. Then, the three final sessions, we're gonna read his, epistle on martyrdom, the letter on astrology, and the essay on resurrection. There's a bibliography of the books that I use to prepare, and we're gonna be having readings. It's all in your binder. If at any point you find that your binder is missing something, which may happen, just call or email Judy, and she will make sure to get you the missing items. I want to give, although she's not here right now, I want to give special thanks to my assistant Judy Blatter, who assembled all of these binders for you. This is a no small task. No small task. And we learned from the first semester just how much work it is to put the binders together. So we started a lot earlier this time, and Judy did an outstanding job of putting them together. So I'm grateful to her. All right, so that's the roadmap of the course. One of the important ways that I find students can learn about this material is to participate in teaching, our fellow students. We did this in our course last semester, and we're going to do it again this semester for each of the background readings on the syllabus. I want to ask a student to sign up to present a summary of the reading to the class. And then each student's summary, you'll present it, give us a copy, and Judy will send them to you so that you'll end up with a student summary of each of the background readings that you can add to your binder. So I have a sign-up sheet here, and I realized last semester what I didn't do was give our online students the opportunity to sign up. So I want to make sure to do that. I don't exactly know the best way to do this.
We get copies from the last course.
What's that?
We get copies of the summaries from the last course.
Oh, yeah, Judy should have sent them, I believe she did.
Emailed.
Yeah, they were all emailed. Okay, so I need to think about this.
You could do it all online.
Judy can send it out.
Oh, that's an idea.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it that way. Maybe we'll do it that way. I'll ask Judy to send this out tomorrow and invite people to sign up to summarize the readings. We have 4 of our students who already signed up to present tonight. So that's going to be great. We'll hear from them in a few minutes. So thank you to Nancy, Sandy, Mickey, and Lori for signing up to do that for tonight's background readings. Okay, before we continue, are there any questions specifically about the logistics, the organization of the class? Nothing substantive about Maimonides, because we're gonna talk about that. But if there's any specific questions about what we have talked about so far, please let me know. Yes, David.
And Judy issue out access to a digital version of the.
You want to have a digital version of the binder? Okay.
That way I can read it somewhere.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So we can take care of that.
Digital.
So I can read it online.
She said,
Only for this person's credit.
uh, let me, okay, I wrote that down, we'll figure it out. Okay, any other logistical questions? Adam.
What's the difference between the stuff behind the green page?
Okay, good question. So in your binder, you'll see that for each unit, inside each unit, there's a green page in there. The green page is a divider between the background readings and the primary text. Okay, so the pages that are in front of the green are the background readings. And the background readings, you should do in advance of each unit. Okay, I would encourage you to read all of the background readings in advance of the start of the unit. That will be the best way to do it. Of course, if you find that you need to read them through the unit, that's fine too, but ideally you're reading the background readings before the unit begins. And then behind the green page are the primary texts. Those are the texts that we are going to study together in class. Okay, that's the distinction there. Okay. Any other questions about logistics? Anything online? Okay. All right, so raise your hand if you have studied Maimonides before in any depth or not. Or just like in any, you've encountered Maimonides. Okay, all right, that means most of you have not studied Maimonides before, yes. All right, so that's great. This is a wonderful introduction to him. So tell me, I want to take maybe like 3 comments here. When I say Maimonides, what do you think of?
Sunday school.
Sunday school? You studied Maimonides in Sunday school?
Studying this depth, but just. learning.
Wow, okay, that's a good Sunday school that you went to. Adam?
Jewish Renaissance man.
A Jewish Renaissance man, okay. And that's good, because that's the term Renaissance man in the colloquial, not the literal, because Maimonides lived before the Renaissance. However, he was a Renaissance man in the sense of somebody who knows lots and lots of different things and is involved in all kinds of different areas of life and human knowledge. Michael?
Philosopher.
A philosopher. Okay, good. Yeah,
Naim has his hand up.
Okay, Naim, go ahead.
When I think of Maimonides, there's a statue of a tall man in a turban with a beard in Cordova, Spain.
Yeah.
And he's represented as being Maimonides. So that's the image if I think of Maimonides, that's the image of him in my head.
The statue in Spain, if you've seen that. Okay, Maimonides was born in Spain, although.
Yeah, Marjorie has her hand up too.
Marge, go ahead.
I was thinking of him as a physician.
Yes, he was a physician. Yes, absolutely. He was a physician to the Sultan of Egypt, so a very prominent and important physician. All right. These are really good comments. Nobody said anything about law yet. However, Maimonides is a very important figure in Jewish law. The field of Jewish law is called halakha. We want to make sure that we're aware of that term because we're going to be studying it with some depth. So Maimonides is very interesting because he is both a halachist, meaning essentially like a Jewish lawyer or a legal scholar, and also a philosopher. And these two genres of Jewish writing are quite different from each other. And Maimonides engaged deeply in both and wrote masterworks in both areas. Two of the most important Jewish works I think that exist, the Mishnah Torah, which is a code of Jewish law, and the Guide of the Perplexed, which is a book of philosophy. So we're going to encounter him both as a legalist and also as a philosopher and learn about kind of the intersection of both in Maimonides' thinking. Okay, so with that, I want to invite our presenters to start us off. And unlike last semester's course on anti-Semitism, we're going to begin our class each time with the blessing for the study of Torah, because we are studying Torah here. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay, Nancy, you want to come on up? Okay. All right, and Nancy, if you'll just come over here, and you can sit right here. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just leaving it. Talk right into it.
That's fine. So, hi, everybody. Hi. So, I don't know if you noticed, but this first introduction that I chose to summarize happened to be the shortest one.
Yes, we noticed.
Which is very reminiscent of my behavior in fourth grade when given a current events assignment. I would insist on my dad and we would look, and it had to be the shortest possible in the New York Times. Anyway, so that's where that comes from. And I'm really happy to be here to start this off. So this is a summary of Joel Kramer's article named Maimonides, the Life and World of One of Civilization's Greatest Minds. It says, Unit 1D, 1. At the very top of our class syllabus, it states, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, also known as Maimonides or Rambam, is widely recognized as one of the most important Jewish scholars of all time. Kramer's article explains Maimonides' goal was to revolutionize Judaism and move towards a religion of reason. Maimonides wanted a religion based on nature and knowledge of natural beings. Quote, God's works, not God's words. Mainly concerned with the study of science and nature, these studies build the foundation of religion, reason, and understanding. Maimonides teaches philosophical truths. Don't need to change religious beliefs. Religion comes into place or takes over where science can no longer explain, or when science reaches its limits. He believed human intelligence is limited. The place between human intelligence and beyond is the space of beauty and harmony of nature. We should live in accordance with nature in every aspect of our lives. Maimonides was aware of the power of government, corruption, ruin, and chaos. Belief in beauty of nature, order, and restraint are therapeutic. Amid chaos, turmoil, and corruption, we can keep the love of order, restraint, and moderation. When we follow ethical and religious precepts and maintain a healthy lifestyle, we escape the sea of chance as far as humanly possible. I'm truly excited. Written 25 years ago, its relevance for us today is truly remarkable. I'm truly excited to learn about the writings and philosophy of Maimonides, a man who lived about 25 centuries ago, whose ideas are completely relevant to the world in our lives today.
Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Great job. Thank you, Nancy. All right, Sandy, come on up. Sandy is going to present Goodman's general introduction.
Well, I took the rabbi's word and you're getting one paragraph. In the opening pages of Rambam, Readings in the Philosophy of Moses Maimonides, Len Evan Goodman introduces the life, historical context, and intellectual mission of Moses Maimonides. He was born on March 30th, 1135 CE in Cordova, Spain, near the end of a relatively safe period for Jews in that region. But by his 13th birthday, the family was forced into exile. What followed was a period of movement and insecurity for approximately 2 decades, until the family settled in Egypt, Cairo, where Maimonides became the leader of the Jewish community as well as a highly respected physician. Throughout his life, his prolific writings, both in his native Arabic and Mishneh Hebrew, covered a wide range of subjects, including law, medicine, science, mathematics, logic, and the nature of faith. He believed the function of the state is to create conditions of peace and security so that men could reach their full potential.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sandy. Wonderful. Okay, Mickey, you're up.
So in the first chapter of Halbertall's book, he tries to give us an idea of the personality of Maimonides. Maimonides was intellectually full of himself, and with good reason. He was born in Cordova, Spain in 1135, went into exile in 1148, and eventually settled in Old Cairo in 1168. He had a brilliant mind and was well educated by his father and well read in Torah, science, and philosophy. This period was 600 years after the completion of the Talmud, and a time of geopolitical change that caused dispersion of the Jews and the localization of study. Maimonides believed that halakhic knowledge had deteriorated, and he considered himself the first among equals in understanding and being able to explain in simple language that all could understand the inner meaning of Judaism. Further, he believed that he had a duty to share his insights in writing so that the full understanding of Judaism would not be lost to future generations. From 1170 to 1180, he undertook the codification of Jewish law in the Mishneh Torah, and in 1190, he wrote his Guide to the Perplexed. Maimonides' sense of history and his self-image made him a monumental figure, and to this day, his admirers agree. Thus, he is called the Moses of his generation.
Beautiful. Thank you. Excellent presentation. And finally, we are going to hear from Rabbi Lori Gold, who is presenting online.
Okay.
So,
Hi.
Lori, maybe we can Lori.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Great. Greetings from St. Augustine. It's wonderful to see everybody. I want to give a special shout out to Marge Cursius, whom I haven't seen in years. It's great to see you here, Marge, and everybody else. So I did a synopsis of the first chapter of Sarah Strumza's Portrait of a Mediterranean Thinker. Okay, and this chapter is called Maimonides and Mediterranean Culture. Maimonides read and was influenced by numerous ancient Greek philosophers, as well as Christian, Jewish, and Muslim Mediterranean scholars. Maimonides absorbed the writings of these men and then created an enormous body of Jewish philosophy, biblical interpretation, theology, and halakha, Jewish law. He was also well versed in astronomy, medicine, and math, and contributed to these fields. Maimonides wrote many of his works, including his Guide of the Perplexed and commentary on the Mishnah in Judeo-Arabic. He wrote many of his later works, however, in Hebrew. This change reflected and influenced the shift from the Judeo-Arabic Mediterranean to the Hebrew-speaking world of Christian Europe. And the last, starting with the shift from to Christian Europe, was from page 22 of my reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Gold. That was excellent. All of our presentations tonight were outstanding. Thank you for your wonderful teachings and for helping us understand the background reading. So based on what we heard and based on what you read in advance of the class, what questions do you have? Karen? Is your hand up, Karen? No. Oh, sorry.
No, thank you.
Do we have Naeem? Go ahead.
I mean, if you take Maimonides' word for it, obviously you need some independent sources. Is it fair to say that he saved Judaism from splintering with his Mishneh Torah?
That's a good question. Did he save Judaism from splintering? I would say that he contributed mightily to cohesion across the Jewish world. And he went part of the way toward kind of preventing splintering, or better said, perhaps toward creating a bonds in the field of practice and law across the Jewish world. But when we get to Mishneh Torah, we will learn about why Mishneh Torah, where it succeeded and where it failed. Maimonides is definitely not the last word in codification of Jewish law, although he intended to be. But he is not the last word, and we'll get to that. But as the readings point out, I think maybe it was Halbertal in particular, who pointed out that Maimonides existed at a time where, in his mind anyway, the Jewish law in particular, the Jewish law was a field in need of a boost. And he set out to provide that boost, to provide something that would keep Jewish law relevant in his time and beyond. Now, Halbertal also points out that, this is the 12th century. There was a lot of halakhic activity during Maimonides' time, actually, in Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz was northern France and Germany in this period, but Maimonides wasn't aware of it because of, communication and so forth in the Middle Ages. But as far as he was concerned, there was a dearth of halakhic synthesis, and risking the halakha as an integral part of Judaism. Yes, I can't tell. Oh, Dave.
What I really want to find out is this guy seems to have so many amazing things, and yet his view of Hashem has some fixed, inflexible body. Seems to go so against anything that I can pray for.
Okay.
And I want to understand that. It's like, it seems so wise to get what I've heard. He believes in this inflexible, everything formed, nothing can change. This God, then what are we doing?
Yeah. Okay, so David is referring to Maimonides' theology, which is, I guess it's a somewhat a radical theology. Next week, when we get into the 13 principles of faith, we will dive into this. But Maimonides is the consummate rationalist. Raise your hand if you consider yourself to be a rationalist. A lot of us do, and that's not surprising, given that we are a Reform congregation. Reform Judaism, classical Reform Judaism, presented itself as a rationalist and scientific form of religion. And we are all heirs to that, whether we realize it or not. We are heirs to that tradition. Rationalism is something that we take pride in as Reformed Jews and modern people. Maimonides in his time was a rationalist, and he's the most important figure in the school of rationalist thought within Judaism. But Judaism is not exclusively a rationalist faith. There are lots of thinkers that disagree dramatically with Maimonides' approach. Namely, and perhaps most importantly, the school of Kabbalah, mysticism, which is non-rational. So when David is pointing to Maimonides' theology, his take on God, as I say, next week we're going to get into it a little more, but as a preview, the main thing that we need to know about Maimonides' theology is that God is perfect, eternal, and unchanging. If that's the case, that has lots of implications for practice, like prayer, right? If God is perfect, eternal, and unchanging, what does that mean for prayer?
Useless.
Well, why do you say useless?
Well, if God's made a determination, you can pray all you want. The determination has been made, it's not changing.
Okay, so I wouldn't say that Maimonides sees prayer as useless, but he definitely sees it as not capable of changing God. Because God is perfect, eternal, and unchanging. Okay, so in Maimonides' theology, prayer does not serve to impact God in any kind of way. Okay, so that's one thing. So when David, I think you're right to point out, this is for many people a shortcoming in Maimonides, that his God is so abstract, such a rationally constructed entity, that it's hard to relate to that kind of God. It's hard to have a relationship with this kind of God that is so abstract and so kind of removed from human encounter, the human relationship, I guess. It's not a relational God, it's different. Okay. Maimonides gets to this in part because his major philosophical project is something that we can, I think, as moderns relate to in our own time, which is to demonstrate that Torah and science are not in conflict. Okay? If you have to sum up Maimonides' philosophy in one sentence, that's it. Now, so many of us struggle with that in our own time. Torah teaches us stuff, science teaches us stuff, and we look at it and we say, wait a minute, these are different. Now, in our time, the most common impulse amongst non-Orthodox Jews, I think, is to view science as paramount and say, well, the Judaism, that maybe that's just like kind of a bunch of religious bunk, or it's outdated, or it's not relevant, or whatever, because it doesn't accord with science, which we hold to be paramount. In Maimonides' view, and in his time in the Middle Ages, both Torah and science, as he saw it, were truth with a capital T. The science of his time is, there's science and also philosophy, rationalist philosophy. These are truth with a capital T. He was equally committed to Torah and to science as sources of truth with a capital T. Well, if that's the case, and you look at the two of them and see that they conflict, you have a problem. Maimonides' philosophical project is to demonstrate that actually they don't conflict. And he's going to teach us why. That's what it's about. So he's a modern kind of guy in his own time, right? So that to salvage Judaism or to salvage science, either way, so that people don't abandon the one in favor of the other. Okay, Dorothy.
Okay, my question is about the guide.
The guide of the perplexed, okay? Yeah. Can you speak up, please?
In the reading that we've done so far, the explanation is that he felt that he alone had the gift of insight into understanding this.
Yeah.
And that with his death, it would go with him into the grave, and nobody else would understand this without him explaining it. And it somehow relates to the account of the chariot that's in Ezekiel, which to me is very spiritual and Kabbalistic and all of that stuff. So I'm having a little difficulty understanding if this is a Kabbalistic kind of concept and he is not supporting Kabbalah. I'm a little confused. I am perplexed.
You are, yeah, you're perplexed. So when we get to the guides, we're gonna look at, some of these different aspects, that I've angels and prophecy and all these kinds of things. And Maimonides will give us a decidedly rationalist reading. Kabbalah is not in his vocabulary or worldview at all. Kabbalah as a strong kind of strain of Judaism emerges post Maimonides, but that said, he's not unaware of it. It does exist in his time as well as a kind of a smaller or a less influential movement, but he is totally against it. Kabbalah and Maimonides are absolutely incompatible with each other. So we're going to see now, to the extent that you equate Kabbalah with spiritual, then you might not find Maimonides spiritual. On the other hand, I would suggest, and certainly Maimonides would suggest, that there are other ways of defining the term spiritual, okay, that are non-mystical. Now this will be a part of our learning and engagement with this material is that you will see a particular kind of spirituality that may or may not resonate with you. Okay?
I have a question.
If it doesn't resonate with you, okay, that's fine. You're learning how Maimonides thought. On the other hand, maybe it will resonate with you in ways that you don't realize yet. But Maimonides' spirituality is a rationalist spirituality. And contrary to what, how people tend to use these terms today, like rationalist versus spiritual as opposites, in Maimonides, they are not opposites. They are the same. Okay, Dory, there's a question.
Yeah, I have a question in the chat from Sue.
Okay. You want to read it for me?
Yeah, briefly, what was the condition of Judaism that he sought to reform?
So, so a couple of things, and they're revealed in the readings. One is in the medieval Judaism of his context, which is in the Spartic world. This is a time of intellectual flourishing in the fields of science, philosophy, logic, grammar, medicine, which are very strong intellectual currents in the Muslim world of this time in which he lived. So apropos the comment of Maimonides being a Renaissance man, he was very well versed in these disciplines of human knowledge. And as were others. And the condition for some like him is perplexity. What does perplexity mean? It means to be perplexed is to be puzzled or to be agitated. They're agitated because what they know from science and philosophy and etc. and what they know from Judaism seem to be at odds with each other. And if you hold both of them to be absolute truth claims, then that's a source of deep spiritual angst. So one thing that Maimonides seeks to do is to reconcile those two, religion and science, as it were, to alleviate perplexity. The other major condition, and Halbertal talks about it, is Maimonides sense in the Sephardic world that the dispersion of Jews outside of kind of the Babylonian diaspora and the kind of the end of the Talmudic academies that existed in Babylonia prior to his time had contributed to an erosion in the knowledge of Jewish law. And so he sought to remedy that through his halakhic writings, most specifically the Mishnah Torah, which is a comprehensive code of Jewish law. Okay, Adam.
You once taught us that science tends to teach us how, and religion tends to teach us why.
Yeah.
And one of the most modern examples of this is Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who himself was a scientist and philosopher as well as a led a halachic life.
Yeah.
And he actually felt that you had to have a different mindset, that you couldn't combine the two, but you had to think differently when you talked about one than about the other. And the two.
But that's modernist thinking. Maimonides doesn't know that kind of thinking. Maimonides doesn't compartmentalize. Many people today are comfortable doing that. Saying like, I understand science is science, religion is religion, and I can hold the two of them together even if they're in conflict in my own mind. That is not what Maimonides does. He is all about reconciling science and religion. Pat.
I have a question about Kabbalah.
Okay.
How prevalent was it in his time, and when did Kabbalah develop?
Kabbalah really kind of takes off in the 13th century. This is post Maimonides. Yeah, there is Kabbalah earlier than that. There's some important works of Kabbalah, but nothing like the flowering of it in Spain in the 13th century and then onward. Yeah, Sandy.
The account of the chariot, I've never heard about it before.
Yeah.
But that was verbal learning, and that's.
No, it's not something you really need to worry about. Halbertal talks about it. It's a passage in Ezekiel that is a kind of a central text of mystical, and Kabbalah comes along and adopts it as a mystical text. Maimonides gives a reading of it that's rationalist, so it's just a different approach. You don't really need to worry about it. All right, so what I want to do now is turn to our primary text, the behind the green page, Shmona Parakim, a treatise on the soul. So this is going to be our introduction to Maimonides' writings. To give us a little taste of it. So this volume, Shmona Parakim. Shmona means 8. And Parakim means chapters. Okay, so it's 8 chapters. And he creatively titled it 8 chapters. So this is a part of Maimonides' commentary to the Mishnah. He wrote Shmona Parakim as an introduction to his commentary on Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot, you may be familiar with that one. It's a section of the Mishnah that has wisdom sayings the ancient sages. So a lot of aphorisms that we know come from Pirkei Avot, like, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Right? Or do not separate yourself from the community. Or God gave the Torah to Moses at Sinai. Moses passed it down to Joshua, Joshua to the elders, etc. The chain of tradition. Lots of kind of rabbinic sayings are put together in Pirkei Avot. And Maimonides wrote a commentary to Pirkei Avot, but before writing the Pirkei Avot commentary, he writes Shmona Parakim as an introduction to the Pirkei Avot commentary, and it gives a good window into his philosophy. He wrote it in Arabic, Judeo-Arabic. Judeo-Arabic is it's Arabic like written with Hebrew characters. You know, it's kind of the dialect that Jews in his time spoke. One additional, I should have done this earlier, but one note on names. So his name is Moshe ben Maimon, Moshe son of Maimon. Okay. In the Jewish tradition, he is known as Rambam. Okay, why Rambam? Andy.
Rabbi Moses ben Maimon.
Yes, exactly. It's an acronym. So this is the traditional Jewish way of referring to important scholars and sages, as they get an acronym. That's how you know, like, you're really important in Judaism, is if you have an acronym. Okay, so Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, okay, is Rambam. Why Maimonides? What does that mean? Where does that name come from? Greek, yeah. Okay, so the suffix IDES means son of, exactly. So his father was called Maimon. So Maimonides is just the Greek way of saying Ben Maimon, the son of Maimon. Arlene.
Yeah, there was a lot of references to people with Ibn as.
Yeah, that's the Arabic way of saying Ben.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay. So let's, this comes from an edition of Shmona Parakim that I think is really useful. It's written by a couple of Reform rabbis, and they give a good translation and excellent notes on the text. So we'll use their notes to help us in reading. This is chapter 5 of Shmona Parakim, which the authors here entitled "A Person's Use of the Powers of the Soul to Achieve a Particular Purpose." Okay, so let's look down at the bottom. We're going to start with 5, where it says 5:1, the opening paragraph of this chapter. One should control all the powers of the soul in the manner in which we have spoken in the previous chapter. One should have the knowledge of God as an ultimate goal as far as one is humanly able to achieve it. Every action, every movement, every pause, every word should be directed toward that goal, so that nothing is directed in any other direction. As an example, one's eating, drinking, sex life, sleeping, and waking should be directed to the end of bodily health. The purpose of bodily health is the formation and maintenance of perfect and healthy instruments through which the soul will be able to acquire the sciences, the ethical virtues, and the intellectual virtues. Okay, so this is a good opening statement for us, because it gives a really good insight into Maimonides' spirituality. So what's the idea here? What is he saying? Arlene.
That everything should be ultimately focused towards God.
Towards God, yeah, and specifically towards knowledge of God, right? Okay, so for Rambam, the purpose of a Jewish person's life, anyway, probably a human life, but let's just say for the moment, a Jew's life. The purpose of a Jew's life is to attain knowledge of God. That's why we're here. Okay, so everything he's telling us in the first statement here of this chapter, that every aspect of our lives must be directed toward that purpose, toward attaining knowledge of God. Now, what do you like when I say knowledge of God? What do you think that means, Dorothy?
I think it means a state of awe, and I believe that's probably why he's not interested in pleasure. Sex isn't here for pleasure. It's here for the awe of being a partner in creating life.
What is awe?
Awe is a sense of that there's something much bigger out there than you are.
Okay. Okay.
And a regard for the almost too big to comprehend.
Okay. Yeah. Good. What else? When you think of when I say knowledge of God.
Rabbi Lori has her hand up.
Okay, Rabbi.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm thinking maybe like an awareness of God, like being aware of God 24/7.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, awareness, awe, Pat.
I would think science would be part of the awareness of God.
Definitely. Absolutely. This is why science and other disciplines of human knowledge are important to my mind, because they provide knowledge of God. See, and so here you get something about that Maimonides contributes to Judaism that is certainly not a consensus view within Judaism, which is that it is important for Jews to study non-Jewish disciplines. Okay, Maimonides was opposed in that by a lot of people, a lot of his contemporaries, some of whom banned the study of non-Jewish knowledge. Has anybody, and not only his contemporaries, has anybody read the book As a Driven Leaf?
Oh, yes.
Okay, great book by Milton Steinberg. Okay, and it's about a sage, a Talmudic sage, Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, who is called the heretic because he is curious and he learns the Greek disciplines and so forth, and his colleagues, that's no good, and that's for both. In Maimonides' time, there some rabbinic authorities banned the study of non-Jewish books. Maimonides is a bit of a maverick in this sense, in saying that it is the duty of a Jew to learn all the disciplines of human knowledge, not only the Torah, not because there are things that the Torah doesn't teach. See, he didn't believe that. He believed that the Torah taught everything, but he believed that you needed to study the sciences and other disciplines of human knowledge so that you could properly understand the Torah. Because all of it, remember, the Torah is absolute truth, as well as, the sciences are absolute truth. And he said, you need to learn wisdom wherever you can get it. Okay, that was a radical approach in his time. Something now I think we take pride in wanting to do as Jews, but that wasn't always the case. Okay, so you see here that he's telling us the purpose of our lives is to attain knowledge of God. Now, remember I said Maimonides' idea of God is perfect, eternal, and unchanging. Okay, so you can conclude from that, it follows from that, God's knowledge is perfect, and that God, and more to the point, that God is perfect knowledge. Okay, And so to attain knowledge of God is to acquire perfect knowledge. Now, is that possible? Is it possible to attain perfect knowledge? No. It's not possible for finite human beings to attain perfect knowledge, which is associated with God, which is infinite. God is infinite. We're finite. Now we're going to see how the concepts of finitude and infinity factor into Maimonides' theology. It's very important in his 13 principles of faith. But there's asymmetry between us and God. God is infinite, perfect, eternal, unchanging. We are not. None of those things. So our job, our mission in life is to acquire knowledge of God to the best possible extent that we can, recognizing that we will never attain it as humans. So what does that say to you then about spiritual living as a Maimonidean? Ed.
I'm struggling with his own personal experiences of persecution, driven from Spain at age 12 or so,
Yeah.
and then saying that God is perfect.
Okay. But he did.
He did.
Yeah. Yeah. He did. God is perfect, eternal. So let's just follow the thinking. Okay, if the purpose of a human life is to attain maximal knowledge of God, which can never be fully attained, what does it mean to live spiritually as a Maimonidean? Ellen.
I think that's striving. And
Uh-huh.
I think Vince Lombardi borrowed the whole sentiment when he said perfection is what we strive for, and we can never attain it, but we will be excellent or something.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's an aspirational.
Definitely. It is aspirational. Yeah, Jerry.
You can't stop, you have to.
Can't stop. Okay, so if Maimonides were to have a motto, okay, I might say his motto, which I like to adopt as my motto, ABL, always be learning. And all of you, by being in this class, are participating in the Maimonidean enterprise, which is no matter how much knowledge I have or how little, no matter where I am in my life, whether I'm young or old or whatever, it is my spiritual duty, my religious duty to always be learning and expanding my mind. That's Maimonidean spirituality. Yeah, Jerry.
Oh.
Oh, no, it's David's hand. It was just behind your head. Sorry. Okay, David, go ahead.
How does this fit in with the end of the story of Job? Doesn't he say you can't try to understand?
Oh.
He gives him up because doesn't Hashem say to him, don't even try to understand me because you can't.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Job. We're gonna read that later in the Guide of the Perplexed. Yeah, Arlene.
Yeah, it seems that, again, the more knowledge you have, to your connection to God, but that the more knowledge you have, I feel, that I see the more of God's work in us. I
Okay.
think about procreation.
Uh-huh.
A simple, you have sex and you have a baby.
Yeah.
Like, how miraculous is that? Even though there is a scientific explanation for that and etc.
Yeah.
But it just seems that knowledge connects you to God.
Okay, good. Understanding. God, if you think of God as concealed in by a blanket or something. Like, let's just say that you could imagine God as a finite entity, which Maimonides would consider heresy, but let's say you could. And that finite entity is covered in a blanket. Then everything you learn that's of value, I mean, not like stupid learning or, you know, but like real learning. It's like it moves the blanket just a little bit off, you know, what it's covering, and you capture a glimpse, just a little bit of a glimpse of God. So the more you learn Torah, science, philosophy, you know, the humanities, all of these things, you just get a little more view of God. Okay. All
You
right.
have a
So
hand
let's-
up on Zoom,
Okay, whose hand?
Lori.
Okay, Lori, go ahead.
I just want to say that I find this very personally liberating, and it makes me very happy because I've always said my whole life since I started learning, taking classes with Rabbi Davidson up through taking classes with you, is that I've always said, oh, I'm not very spiritual. My entree into Judaism is, and I think I put like a just in there, is just through learning. And I always said that I wasn't spiritual, but now I'm seeing myself as a spiritual person because I am someone who loves to learn. And so I feel happy to be learning this.
Maimonides would be so happy to hear that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had one of my professors at HUC, you know, he said that you know, he didn't particularly care for prayer services. But he said that his spirituality is in study. You know, that and Judaism teaches us that. I mean, like Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam, is a saying of the sages. The study of Torah is equal to them all. That study, learning, developing your mind is a spiritual activity par excellence. And Maimonides embraces that, like that's what he's all about. So never let somebody say that you're not spiritual because you don't like singing or praying or whatever, and your thing is learning. Maimonides' thing was learning. Okay, all right, let's keep going to paragraph number 2, 5.2. Since that knowledge of God is the purpose, bodily pleasure should not be a goal. One should not choose on the basis of pleasure what one should eat and drink. Boy, this is hard advice because, like, I'm always choosing what I eat and drink based on pleasure. Yeah, I have to write the M&Ms in front of you, right? Rather, one's goal should be to eat and drink what is beneficial. The same is true with all other practices. What is beneficial and not what is pleasant should be the goal.
Exactly what I say to my husband when he says donuts with his dinner.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. So look, so Maimonides, I mean, you could view this as austere. I mean, like, oh gosh, Maimonides is really, he's like saying, your job is not, you're not here to enjoy life just for the sake of enjoyment. You're here to acquire knowledge of God. So whatever it is that you need to do to make acquisition of knowledge of God possible in the maximum is what you need to do. Now that means for him, you have to have a healthy body. Not because having a healthy body is cool or makes you look good, you know, or makes you live long. It's have a healthy body so that you can acquire knowledge of God. Because if you're sick, you know, then you can't do that, right? So your maximum capacity. So Maimonides wants us to direct everything that we do toward acquisition of knowledge of God. That's a very purpose-driven kind of way of living. It can also be very austere and very hard, you know, to think about. And there are other Jewish thinkers who would reject this and you know, point to verses in the Torah and the Tanakh that talk about, you know, just savoring pleasure and stuff. And Maimonides is not into that. Okay. Was there Frank?
Maimonides makes the soul in the middle of the discussion.
Yeah.
The purpose of the eating well is to, you know, make your body well.
Yeah.
So that the soul will acquire the wisdom it seeks.
Yes.
and a form of knowledge of God.
Right.
Now, to me, the body will then work on make my intellect able to achieve with the
Yeah.
knowledge of God. I don't see how the soul gets there in the middle. I don't know what
Okay.
the concept of the soul is.
Okay, so the question of the concept of the soul is a big question in theology. So the way Maimonides is looking at soul, I think maybe the way I can just describe it from my understanding of him is that the soul is everything about us that's not tangible, that's not physical. You divide like a human being into like a physical being and a spiritual being, or a non-physical. The soul represents the non-physical. The soul for Maimonides is the essence of the person. It's like it's the animating life force. The body for Maimonides is a house for the soul, as it were. So when he taught, and we're going to read at the end of the course, we're going to read his essay on resurrection. Okay, so that we're going to dig deep into all of that. But Maimonides believed the body is a finite thing that enables us to be in this world and carries us through this world, but the soul is the essence of the person. So you're nurturing your body as the vehicle for the soul to achieve its purposes. Okay, Adam.
Yeah, and he gets this from the Greek philosophers, Thales, who said a sound mind, a sound body, and on the Temple of Delphi, he
Yeah.
said, the main words are know thyself.
Yeah.
Which is the spiritual connection of man
Okay.
with God.
Yeah, this is definitely derived from Greek philosophy, which is in his time, Greek philosophy is philosophy. And and I think like intellect for him lives in the soul. Okay, so now in modern times, in our time, this is a question that challenges the field of biology. There's I gave a sermon on this one a couple of years ago. There's a biologist named Robert Sapolsky who wrote a book called Determined. And the subtitle is A Science of Life Without Free Will. And Sapolsky, as a biologist, says that biological science makes no room for the idea of a soul. He says that a soul is like a mythical construct. He said there's nothing about me as a human being that's not my biology. Okay, but the idea of soul is that there's something about me that is separate from my biology. And, we might feel that, like to be able to speak of, a me or an I over against, my biology. So for instance, when we talk about free will is related to all of this. So you say like, I am going to force myself to do something. Like I'm going to exert willpower. Well, Sapolsky says like, what are you forcing? What is this idea that there's an I that can act against myself? For Sapolsky as a biologist says, that makes no sense. I and myself are 100% the same thing. But the concept of soul is that there's something inherent in you that is separate from your biology, such that
Ego, superego, and the id.
Okay.
I have a little bit.
Okay, I don't know much about, but yeah.
We have it. Marcy has her hand up, and we have one question in chat.
Okay, Marcy, go ahead.
You muted.
I was wondering if Maimonides ever spoke about, say, what art is, or how,
He talks about that in this chapter. He talks about art.
and is that something which helps bring you to a knowledge of God, or is it something
Yeah.
that's simply
All
pleasure?
of these things, it's in here. Yeah. So for him, pleasure is not an end unto itself. Pleasure is an instrument, a vehicle. To the extent that experiencing pleasure makes you of sound body and, you know, mind and perspective, so that you can enhance your knowledge of God, then it's good. But just engaging in pleasure just for the sake of experiencing pleasure is not what he's after. Okay, there was a question in the chat.
Yes, Dr. Oberlander asked, is knowledge of God the same as wisdom?
Yeah, I think for Maimonides it is. Yeah. Jerry and then Dorothy, and then we're gonna read more.
I think that his globalist viewpoint and makes it so that it's not so bereft of pleasure, because so many cultures of the time were into sacrifice. That you know God by fasting, and you know that by whipping or hurting yourself in some way, flagellating.
Right.
And he's not talking about anything like that.
Correct.
He's not talking about sacrifice. He's talking about wholeness.
Exactly. Yeah, Maimonides is not an ascetic. Asceticism, you know, is like self-denial. That's not what he's about either. But he's not about hedonism.
Right.
Right? Or Epicureanism, or whatever the term, like just engaging in pleasure for the sake of pleasure. It's instrumental. And he recognizes, yes, that you cannot acquire knowledge of God through self-denial, through like punishing yourself or depriving yourself. No, you have to be a healthy, holistic being. That's going to facilitate your acquisition of knowledge the best. Okay, Dorothy, and then we're gonna go.
So when some brilliant scientific mind creates a cure or finds the cause of something or explains black holes or whatever, what one believes is that they managed somehow to lift that veil.
Yeah, exactly.
To peek into the realm of the godly.
Right.
And it's because of how much they learned about this thing.
Yeah.
That they were able to do that.
To uncover a little bit more. Yeah, exactly. All right, we're gonna read more and we'll take more comments. All right, so 5.3a. What is pleasant may be employed for medical reasons, as in the case of a person whose appetite has been diminished. For such a person, well-seasoned food may be prescribed to increase the appetite. Similarly, a person may be treated by listening to pleasant music and the sound of musical instruments, by walking through verdant gardens, by passing through magnificent buildings, by seeing beautiful objects. What will expand the desires of the soul will be efficacious in treating melancholy. The purpose of all this is to heal the body. The purpose of healing the body is the soul. About understanding how to utilize the pleasures in life for the ends of attaining knowledge of God. Okay, Pat.
Did Maimonides marry? Twice.
Yeah. Yes, he did. Yeah, twice. His first wife died. Okay, let's turn the next page. Let's read 5.3b. 5.3b. Okay, similarly, were one to be occupied in making and amassing money, one's purpose should be in spending it wisely and taking care of the needs of the body, so that one's life might be preserved in order to know as far as is possible about God. There is an analogy between the acquisition of the intellectual and moral virtues leading to the apprehension of God, and the attainment of true success in the study of medicine. Unlike weaving or carpentry, medicine requires great study and requires specific actions. Similarly, we must evaluate our activities in order to achieve true virtues. A person might eat delicious and aromatic food, the kind of food that most people would want. Yet that food might harm the individual and cause some grave illness or even sudden death. Such eating would be animal rather than human activity, due to the animal nature that we share with other animals, not due to our possession of an intellect. Indeed, the human may be compared to the animal, as it is written, Behemoth nidmu, like beasts that perish, Psalms, is interpreted midrashically as compared to the beasts. To be truly human, one should eat only what is beneficial. To eat what is beneficial might require a person to eat what is not appetizing instead of what is appetizing. Such eating would follow the intellect. It is by the intellect that the human person is distinguished from all other animals. The same is true with regard to sexual intercourse. One should engage in it without regard to any benefit or danger linked to it. Such activity relates to the individual by virtue of our being an animal rather than by virtue of being human. I don't think I understand the last sentence. But before that, okay, everything else you can see, again, the same themes of eating and drinking. I mean, he's a physician, like, so his medical program is probably pretty sound, like even in our time. He's got other medical treatises. One of them is in Mishnah Torah, which is his code of law, of halakha. And it basically has like a health regimen in there where he talks about this stuff about what you eat. He talks about everybody should have 30 minutes of exercise per day and all of these kinds of things. I mean, and he wrote in the 12th century. You read this stuff and it's like, okay, he could be writing right now, but of course his worldview, his motivations for this are a little bit different. And it invites questions, about, I think, about our own time, which is, why are we, to the extent that we are concerned with how we eat, how we, exercise and all that, why are we concerned about those things? Yeah, in our time, in this setting, in 2026, to the extent that those things matter to you, why do they matter to you, Michael?
You want to live longer and you want to enjoy life as much as possible.
You want to live long and enjoy life? Okay. What else? Why else do you care about these things?
Vanity.
Vanity, maybe. Okay. Why else would you care about those things?
You want to be healthy.
You want to be healthy. Why?
So that you can do more things.
So that you can do more things.
So you can learn more.
Okay, well, that's what Maimonides would say. Yeah, right. So it's a very different, when you read him, I think, and understand his philosophy, the recommendations are very similar to what we experience today, but the purpose behind them are different. Okay? He's not saying do these things so that you can look good in a bathing suit or so that you can live long and spend time with your children and grandchildren or so that you can whatever. The only thing that he cares about is fulfilling the purpose of a human life, the acquisition of knowledge of God. Nothing else matters. Okay, Pat.
So my thinking about that is people didn't live that long in those days. They didn't live into their 60s and 70s. And if you didn't preserve your body, you couldn't provide for your children and your family so that they could live.
Yeah, but he's not talking healthy so that you can acquire knowledge of God. That's why you're put on earth. Okay, Phil.
Does he talk about whether you make certain achievements in terms?
More intellectually evolved you become, the more understanding you have of things around you. And I think all of us who learn also know that the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. Right? So it drives you further and further to want to acquire more. Now, also, Maimonides' concept of knowledge is tied in with his concept of prophecy, which we'll get to when we study the guide.
It's like they're having problems staying connected. They should be back in a few seconds.
People taken
There
away
they are.
from trying to get to God because they have to take care of you.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, that's a good insight. All right, let's keep going. Number 5.4. As we have mentioned, it is possible to consider all behaviors in their relation to what is beneficial. However, the one whose sole purpose is keeping the body healthy and free from ailments does not become thereby a pious person, but is simply choosing the delights of health in the same way another might choose the delights of food or the delights of sex. Now that's all right. So this is logical from what he's saying, that being healthy is just another pleasure in life. I mean, and if you're just being healthy in order to be healthy, then in terms of like motivation, in terms of what you're doing in your life, it's no different than just indulging in donuts because they're great. You're not serving your purpose. Okay. And all of which have no ultimate purpose. Instead, the purpose of health and the perfection of the body should be that the body, through its various capacities, may serve as instruments for the soul. No part of the body should be an impediment to the acquisition of moral and intellectual virtues. Let's keep going to the next paragraph, number 5.5. What is derived from the sciences and similar notions that lead to the desired end is never in question. However, those notions that seem to have no purpose in themselves and that seem to convey no benefit, such as the study of mathematics, the book on conic sections, mechanics, geometry, and the study of the suspension of weights, as well as similar studies, may have as their purpose the sharpening of the intellect and the training in the use of proofs, so that a person will acquire the methods of logical proof. In this manner, one will come to the true knowledge of the existence of God. Similarly, in all that touches human beings, one should be concerned only with what will bring benefit to the soul. Now here he gives a nice answer to like kids, like my son. Yeah, why do we have to learn algebra? I'm never going to use it, right? And he's of course telling us, you do these things because it sharpens your mind. I remember when I was
Yeah, it glitched again. And should be back in 2 seconds.
So much that is in the Talmud is so obscure and whatnot. And I remember asking my teachers, like, why do we learn this stuff? Like, what's the point? And he said that we study the Talmud because it teaches us how to think. And that's so important to the Jewish ethos. You know, whether or not we have studied Talmud ourselves, it's part of our cultural heritage that, you know, that we value learning, you know, for the sake of learning. And you know, it's in Jewish culture to spend, you know, people in generations before us and some people in generations today spend all their time, you know, just studying the pages of the Talmud, learning about the minutiae of sacrifices and all kinds of things that have nothing to do with anything. But they're teaching you how to think. And he says that that's important because that helps us in the acquisition of knowledge of God. Yes.
So the answer, I guess, is you're not learning algebra because man created it. You're learning algebra because God created it. This is a knowledge, and it is as worthy of study as anything else. It's like,
Well, I don't know if God created it.
well,
I mean, it's, you know, like it's a method that's human developed. Science is methods developed by human beings, but those methods help us gain insight into God.
isn't science the discovery of what is already there?
Yeah, but it's methods for discovering it.
Okay.
Right? Science is a method. It's like it's a science is a how we acquire knowledge. And those particular methods open the door to acquisition of certain things that other disciplines don't give you. So I don't think you would say that God made science or God made algebra. It's just that those methods enable us to uncover things about God that without those disciplines we couldn't uncover. Okay, I want to keep
We have
going.
a question in the chat real quick.
Yeah. You gonna read it?
Dr. Oberlander asked, does Maimonides expect us to apply this learning towards service to humanity?
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's, you know, the mitzvot, many of the mitzvot of the Torah have to do with service toward humanity. So for Maimonides, he's 100% all in on the Torah. I mean, he believes, you know, that it is it's an obligation to fulfill the mitzvot. So that's part of of acquiring knowledge of God too. So whereas some, you know, thinkers say that the fulfillment of mitzvot is an end unto itself in the sense that God said to do it, I do it, therefore I'm fulfilling the will of God. Maimonides would say that, but he wouldn't stop there. That the end is not just the fulfillment. The end is the acquisition of knowledge that it brings you. So when you engage in mitzvot, when you do, you know, you give tzedakah or you know, help some restore lost property or, you know, do any of the mitzvot, that has an educative function. It teaches you about God. So moral virtue is like science for him. It's another discipline that helps us understand better. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, Nancy.
So learning leads to knowledge. And knowledge leads us to God.
Yeah.
Knowledge about God. Which then leads us to a connection with God.
Yeah, the connection and I think it's important to emphasize, apropos what I said earlier about Kabbalah is that for Maimonides, connection with God is not like a connection with another person. Like, it's not relational. In Kabbalah, knowing God, cleaving to God in Kabbalah is like an intimate relationship. In Maimonides' rationalism, it's not that. It's more perfect knowledge. Like paradise for Maimonides, he actually writes about this in his commentary to the Mishnah. That the paradise, the world to come, means sitting in the light of God and experiencing perfect knowledge. That's the best thing that we can attain.
So perfect.
So it's like perfect knowledge. If you have perfect knowledge, that's bingo. Then you hit everything.
And you have knowledge of God.
You have knowledge of God, which is perfect knowledge. So it's not relational. It's not, God doesn't know me or anything like that. It's just that I attain perfect knowledge of everything. All the answers, all knowing of everything is what God is, and you kind of, when in the afterlife, the world to come is like merging into that, into perfect knowledge. Okay. So it's 8:30, so we're gonna stop here. And then next week, so Judy will send this out, you can sign up. We'll need a couple of presenters for next week. And we're going to get into more into the commentary on the Mishnah. All right, thanks everybody.